Hello YouTubers and welcome to another video. It's been a while since I done a video. I'm a bit rusted, but as usual, just press the button, let the phone record, upload, and wait for those likes to come through. Thank you so much to all my supporters. Today I have a very interesting product, and that is the Marantz M1. This is a streamer, a digital streamer amp. It's an all-in-one unit, and it's very interesting for a few reasons. Because it's really small, it's really powerful, and it does the streaming, so I can stream high-resolution stuff through here. So why this? Because most of my music listening is done through the laptop or through a near field headphone amplifier, so I'm at my desk here. But downstairs I wanted a means of playing high resolution files or music straight out of my phone. I went online and I started looking at streamers and things, and this one the Marantz M1 keeps popping up as on top of the lists. And so I watched a few reviews and stuff, and the overwhelming majority of people and reviews seem to say that this is an amazing machine, groundbreaking. It can compete with like traditional systems. It's got fancy technology in here, built in Japan, blah blah blah. So a lot of stuff. So when I found a deal on Black Friday, I said, look, I want to try it. I want to try it, see what the hype is all about. So is the hype warranted or is the hype not warranted? Does this measure up against an Audiolab 300 XP, which is the amp I've been comparing it against, or not? Well, let's find out. But before we talk about sound, let's talk about the form factor. And the form factor on here is one of the big advantages of this device. My girlfriend, for one, she was very excited about having something so small in the living room. Instead of a massive big amplifier. So for those of you who are size conscious, or you want something minimalistic that doesn't take much space, this is a very interesting proposition, because with a little box like this you can do all your music stuff. So this is how it looks, not too big. I can hold it with one hand here. In terms of build and function, at the front here you got the Marantz symbol, and then you got like a couple of touch controls: plus volume, minus volume, pause and play, although you can do all this stuff through the app. In terms of how the unit communicates with you, because there's no screen, there's a little light here, an LED light, and the unit lets you know that something's happening right as you do things. I particularly like the sound wave pattern here at the top. I think that looks pretty cool. In terms of build quality, although this is not something you're going to be handling a lot, it's okay, but it doesn't feel necessarily premium or anything. It's just okay. At the bottom you got this big rubberized foot, and I do like this pattern here. It's cooling. I only realized that when I was doing this review here. And so I think that looks pretty cool. And you've got like a tripod mount here. I mean, this reminds me of like photo cameras. So you could potentially have that on a tripod if you wanted. Going around the back, you get all your connections, and there are quite a lot of connections here, but there are a few things missing as well, which are unacceptable, Marantz. So you got your terminal, speaker terminal ports here, and they are unfortunately quite flimsy. They feel cheap, right? They don't feel like as good as some others that I've touched. They remind me of my very old, over 10 years old Marantz CR502 kind of terminals. Not impressed with how these feel. You got your RCA analog inputs, you got a sub out, you got an IR in, you got a Bluetooth button here, your power cable goes in there, you got optical in, you got HDMI ARC, and that is to connect to your TV. My TV is, I think, Soul, so I bought it in 2008 or 7, already has HDMI ARC. So when I connected the TV to here, basically they had a message pop on the TV saying that audio equipment connected, and then all the sound from the TV would go onto here. That's a useful feature, although I never had any issues with using the optical on here. Then you got a USB input here. However, this is for hard drives or external drives and things like that with music files on them, and it also charges the equipment. So it's got a, you know, some, you can charge maybe even your phone or whatever through here. But what you cannot do is connect a computer to it. So if you want to connect a computer or laptop onto here to play music, you will not be able to do that. And I think that's a big omission, you know, it's because with this form factor, this could be a contender for someone's desktop layout, right, for near field listening, because actually this excels at near field listening more than it does in the living room. But more on that in a minute. Then you got the connect button here, which I'm not quite sure what that's for. It's where you connect with the app. I haven't had to use it. Or did I use it when I first unpacked it? I think. And then you got an Ethernet port here, in case you want to connect it to your router instead of using the Wi-Fi. So in terms of ports, there aren't that many, but there are many varieties, you know, so we got one of each kind of situation. So that's, I think, quite cool. Shame about the missing the USB input here. I don't think that is quite acceptable. In terms of technology here, so this has got 100 watts power, the amplifier on here. And 100 watts from something like this size is quite something. You know, 100 watts is quite a lot of power. And the way that Marantz achieves this is because the technology they use for the amplifier is called digital switching. So it's a digital switching amplifier. Marantz are not the only ones using this. There are other people using this. It's a more modern technology, if you like. And it, in theory, what it does is, what it means is that like all the signal, the audio signal, is kept in the digital realm, all through the amplification stage. And what that allows you in theory is to manipulate that signal. And that can be advantageous because you can tailor it as you want and all that kind of stuff. I don't quite understand how you would do that. But that's in theory an advantage of a digital switching amplifier. And you know, people are saying like that, oh, it doesn't have a DAC. Yeah, if as far as I understand, it doesn't have a DAC chip, right? So I think there's a bit of confusion out there. It doesn't have a DAC chip in the sense that, you know, an ESS DAC or an AKM DAC, because traditionally what you do is that you buy an off-the-shelf chip that does the conversion, and then you have all the associated circuitry around that DAC developed, including the amplification and so on and so forth, in the analog world. But this baby here, the signal is digital, so even if you connect an analog input here, it's going to be converted to digital. Or when you stream wirelessly, that's digital. So everything's done digitally. But of course, before it goes to the speakers, it has to be converted to analog, because speakers are not, they won't receive a digital signal. So the signal coming out of these speaker ports here is analog. But instead of having a DAC inside, as in a DAC chip, it has some sort of a proprietary circuitry that Marantz has developed. After the amplification stage, it gets converted to analog and pushed into the speakers. And that's all very interesting. So in theory, you know, like photoshopping the sound or manipulating the sound can be a really good thing, right? So I think we live in a digital world. I think a lot of things digital. I think there are probably music studios that handle editing and whatever, all in the digital realm. So So I haven't necessarily got anything against the idea of a digital amplification. What I was interested in finding out is how this compares to, in particular, my to an analog amplifier, in particular the Audiolab 8300 XP. So I put it through the ropes, both in near field and downstairs in the living room. And what I can say is that when I first connected this, I was very impressed. The command is a powerful thing, yeah. So it has no issue driving the speakers, you know, like, and you can feel that, you know, especially at the lower end. The lower end is very tight and very textured, and that is something that impressed me right away. However, the further you went up in the frequency range, the more I felt that something was missing, right? So the mids lacked a little bit of body, and the resolution is there, was there, you know, the sparkle was there, but I felt there was a little bit of a lack of body, you know, like it was just like almost lean, you know, like so there was no heft to the sound, comparing it to the 1300 XP. The soundstage was narrow, much narrower. You know, like when you start listening to sounds here and there, and then there's like a lot of stuff going on, and you feel like you're involved with the music. It doesn't happen so much with the Marantz M1 in comparison to the Audiolab 8300 XP. And that is a shame, you know, because I had high expectations for this, but, you know, I just didn't enjoy the sound as much as I thought I was going to enjoy. It reminded me a little bit about the Fuzzy that I tried, the monos, and the topping, and there was a topping B200, I think, that I tried. Really good amps, really good resolution, clear, really good imaging, but missing that weight and that musicality and that kind of presence, if you like. So I didn't get that from this as much as I'm getting from an analog amplifier, in particular the 8300 XP. This is better than the topping, better than the other digital amplifiers that I've tried, but it still doesn't cut it on a head-to-head with an analog amplifier. So I'm a bit surprised about some of the reviews out there that, you know, maybe they listen to it for 5 minutes. What I found was happening is that, like, if the volume, funnily enough, you know, for near field, if you don't need to listen so loud, it's quite good, because even if you lower the volume, the impact is still there. That bass, that texture in the bass is so good. So if you like that, you know, this will have you very happy. However, as soon as you start cranking up the volume, it becomes a little bit fatiguing and grinding, you know, like, so it's not like that mature sound that I'm used to. And that was my take for the sound on this. So for that reason, mostly, this is not the unit for me. You know, it's just not going to cut it. In terms of quality of sound, depending on the inputs here, I think, as you would imagine, the Bluetooth, I don't really test Bluetooth because every time I turn the Bluetooth on or stream something via Bluetooth, I'm just like craving for some definition that the Bluetooth cannot deliver, no matter what anyone says, you know, because once you start having like better equipment, you notice that immediately. So the Wi-Fi performance was pretty good, which leads me to talk about the app, the EOS app. And I compared it to the Win Pro Plus that I got, and unfortunately the EOS app is not as good as the Win Pro Plus. And my question is, like, how can Win, which is like a small brand, come up with an app that works so well and is nice, so many features and all that kind of stuff, and Marantz, together with Denon, together with whatever, cannot come up with an app that is just like good? right? It does the job, it's okay, but it's not good. It's not nice to use, and it doesn't have Cobus integration, for example. So that was a bit of a killer for me. So now the picture was forming. The sound wasn't quite as mature, refined, and weighty, sophisticated as I wanted or I was expecting. Now the app is okay-ish. It doesn't have Cobus. You can't connect it to USB via USB to a laptop, which is a shame because actually at lower volumes the sound is where I liked it the most, because there was no grinding factor. So at really low volumes, like the ones that you can listen for hours and hours, the sound is actually pretty good. I read somewhere that was the switching. I don't know if it's to do with the switching amp or technology. And you guys can correct me down here, or can update me on this. As far as I've read this somewhere, that this not only pushes the driver, it also pulls it. So it has that effect. So you can imagine how doing that gives you a lot more control over the speakers, especially the speaker drivers, especially the low end, right? You can just imagine. So maybe that's something to do with that, because the low end on here is nothing short of really tight and resolved. Like there's a lot of texture, but it lacks that body. It's just that body's missing. So yeah, I wanted to mention this as well, like the remote control. One of the things that I was a little bit fearful of was like, oh, it doesn't have a remote control. Oh, but it's okay because if you have HDMI ARC, then you can use your TV's controller to kind of control the volume and things like that. Because I didn't want to go to the app if I'm watching TV to just control the volume, right? So, but then I found out on setup that you can actually assign any controller to this. It will learn, like during the setup procedure, it goes press up, press down, and then it learns to use that remote for, the volume. So then even if the TV is off or whatever, it doesn't matter, like now you have a controller for this. So if this is holding you back, the fact that it doesn't have a remote control, fear not, because you can use any remote control that you have lying around the house. Of course, probably makes sense to use the TV one. But yes, so that's a funny thing I found out. So yeah, so this is going back for me. It really doesn't serve my purpose. I wish that it had the USB input, because I think the best use scenario for this would be as a desktop. But then, of course, if it's a desktop, you don't really need the streaming facility, with wireless streaming facility. You see, so it's a bit of a not quite enough for a living room, and not quite an overkill because of the streaming features for a desktop. So yeah, my take on this, and I was thinking, what everybody's saying that this sounds so good. It does, but it's just not mature enough, the sound. And I had this idea, maybe if your speakers are not so good, this will make them sound a lot better, I think. But if you already have like good speakers, like I do, then these won't do the speakers any favors. And regardless of speakers, I think you'll always be missing that body and weight in the sound that I really appreciate a lot. So not for me. Thank you, Marantz, for trying. Maybe the next iteration will be better. But no, I'll stick to analog amplification for now. Thank you very much. Yeah, that concludes this opinion/review. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to my subscribers. Every now and then I receive a message saying, new subscriber. Keep asking questions. I'll answer them if I can. And yeah, I don't have like tens of thousands of followers like some other channels, but it's just a bit of fun, and hopefully I'm bringing some value and entertainment to some of you out there. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you around.